And the recording is happening.
It is now, because I hit unmute.
This is the Bonner County Natural Resources Committee. I will call the meeting to order. We have two members whose terms have not expired, so we will not be able to have an official meeting, but we will run through some of the agenda and discuss what we might do for the next meeting, which I'm hoping we can go ahead and have one next month, because we'll have to make these decisions. Okay, so will you follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can't adjudicate the minutes without quorum, no public comment, unless you guys want to call yourselves public. We have three things on the agenda, and with nobody here to work on them, we will hold off on that. So the only action items would be the two updates we normally have, which would be U.S. Forest Service. Luke Hickson, would you mind going ahead and giving us an update?
Sure.
I understand there's maybe some sales going on.
Yeah. So last time, I remember talking anyway, our buckskin decision, at least for Bonner County.
Okay.
Buckskin was still held in court and consultation. We won in court and got the consultation signed. Our first sale out of there was put up for bid and should be the winning bid should be being announced here very shortly. That was out at location is Dry Creek. That's from Clarkport to Clarkport. 16.3 million feet of timber up there. It's a stewardship. So there's a bunch of stewardship work going into the roads out there as well. So road improvement type work. So that's exciting. Should see that getting started here. My guess would be we see equipment hitting. I doubt we'll be working on later this fall. I doubt we'll see something this winter, but by late next spring, early summer, we're going to be seeing equipment and things happening out there. Our next sales will start coming online, one after the other out of there. We've got 12 planned sales
In the same area.
Yeah, so like I said, Dry Creek is kind of on the east of Clark Fork. It's on the east end of the project area, but really we've got 12 sales lined up that go all the way from Elk Ridge, which is past that, east of that yet, all the way back down into the community, Granite Creek, Gilroy Bay, Pine Cove, that ground in there. So there's 13,000 acres of sales that we're going to just start going one after the other on.
Is it reclamation of dead and dying, or is it?
So the general purpose and need of that project was restoration. So yeah, you got the typical standard conditions of Douglas fir, grand fir dying out. We're going in to change those stands into more resilient, large fundraising pine in general. But there's also a large fire reduction component too, especially for the communities down there along the lake. And then private residences are all in the toe of the slopes out there too, in that Clark Fork River Valley that covers it. Fuel reduction effort there. So it's multi-fold. There's some little bit of habitat restoration for fish also
Okay.
in that project. So keeping, sediment out of the streams.
So that would be Dry Creek?
No, that would be Johnson Creek
Oh.
and Granite Creek, namely, and those are both, old trout streams.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Johnson Creek drains into the Clark Fork.
Yep.
Granite drains into Coeur d'Alene.
Ponderay Lake.
Okay,
Monterey, yeah. So, Granite Creek happens to be one of the stations that Fish and Game runs for kokanee rearing. So that's where they collect the kokanee eggs at and rear.
okay.
And then the bull trout come in to eat the kokanee
EPA.
every fall. But there is resident bull trout in there.
Okay,
So there is some, a little measure of that in that project. And one of those sales stewardships will be addressing that as well as we move forward soon. So that's exciting. Also, Sandpoint South is a NEPA project that we'll hopefully have a signed decision on in December, I would imagine. First sale coming out of there will be next summer, June, advertised. It'll be a sale that's GNA, so IDL contract through GNA. That'll be coming online. We'll have a few sales coming out of that. So that would be, Sandpoint South is basically the south end of its Bayview, going up through that Three Sisters country, Blacktail, Little Blacktail, excuse me. What's next? Grouse Mountain, that Green Bay, Mineral Point area, Garfield Bay, and then the north end of it would be Gold Hill. So basically, we did a lot of sales in these areas in the past, but this is going around to get those areas we didn't get before, basically. That's an effort. That project is more geared towards fuel reduction, but also has a large vegetation restoration component.
so will that be on the lakeside
No.
where the Sunset Fire went through? There's going to be quite a fuel reduction there already.
Yes. We could talk about that too. So most of that is that ground that you can see that's still green.
Okay,
So, I mean, yeah, so Sunset Fire, that started from an IDL pile that came back to life, burned through their slash. got
did it come
flames.
back to life several months later?
Yeah, so you know, you like those piles.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at the, maybe I shouldn't say these things out loud.
Oh, that's okay.
Whoops.
Don't worry.
I'm gonna do it anyway. You can look at the aerial imagery of that sale, October 24. You can see the landing pile, the red slash that was put on the ground and left there from slashing the unit. I think they lit that pile just as we would, as anybody does, probably November, right before you have heavy snow come down. And you have those giant landing piles, and everybody has this issue. I don't care if it's IDL, Forest Service, or private.
Right.
You know, those piles can come back to life.
Sure.
And sometimes you're unlucky and you don't catch it. In this instance, there was a sea of red slash. As soon as that got going, it got legs and then took off. And you have just the right, you know, it's unfortunate event, chain of events. You have a breezy day, 20 mile an hour, kind of almost sustained wind from the southwest, that perfect alignment.
Yeah.
Rushed up through. The one thing that surprised me about that burn is it burned through the private ground, of course, homes and whatnot, through those stands, kind of a narrow window there, but it hit the Stimson ground, which is, there was 3 foot tall region, small trees. And it burned through that like it was a stand replacing fire, which
Really?
quite interesting to me.
How hot it
And so there was no, when you look at that, the fuel conditions, you have a grass, 4 understory, and 3 foot tall trees. You don't have this
is.
heavy canopy and timber, jackstraw slash. But it took off through that, and I think only because it had enough heat from the red slash and private ground that had just previously gotten through, that it hit that and just kept going. Now, you can see today where it burned through a gap right over the Forest Service ground there, and then onto the lake face. And that's where it hit some different wind pattern and spread out. And then once that wind died off and the conditions changed a little bit, it got hung up. It basically hung itself up on some ridges out there. It didn't really move a whole lot after that initial 2 or 3 day run. Anyway, so along with that, so we have this planning effort going on, that we had some units identified there with the Sandpoint South project. Ideal, we went up there just this week and looked at some salvage opportunities for timber, which are minimal, because most of that is, as you point out, on the lake face, which is completely inaccessible in reality. But we have above that lake face, it's kind of a bench that, in general, that sits on that rim, and we actually even had some planning units there, where we had some units that were planned to log anyway, and so we decided to, once that decision was signed, expedite the removal of some of that wood. It's not a lot, but we will salvage. And when I say we, the state of Idaho, through the GNA efforts, so an ideal contract will salvage a minor amount, comparatively, of wood there. Probably seeing some wood move off of that in June, May or June of next year. So that's that. And then futuring a little forward, further forward, this winter we'll be working on another planning effort called Chloride Gold. And so the Buckskin project, as I mentioned, ended at Granite Creek, the community of Granite Creek basically down there. Chloride Gold picks up where that leaves off and then comes across the rest of the that country that the Sandpoint Ranger District has on that side of the lake down to Bayview. So we'll do another planning effort to. We have a lot of sales over there too over the last 30 years, but the leftovers of that stuff will be getting with that as well. And then just futuring out for the Sandpoint District and Bonner County in general, as far as the Forest Service is concerned, we'll be focusing then on the Priest Lake country. We have a giant planning effort basically on the south portion of the Priest Lake Ranger District, which is basically just north of Priest River up, it's about the 20-mile marker on Highway 57. There's a 35,000 acres of potential logging treatments that will be starting to need the effort on that in the near future too. Yeah. Anyway, it's good to finally have some things break loose.
Right.
And then zooming out a little bit more from direction, our direction so far, there's a lot of confusion going on because there's many things happening in the background with federal government force, right? So, but we're ramping up, put more volume out in the market, treat more ground. I don't know how that's all going to come together because at the same time we're reducing workforce. We had a meeting with our Forest Service chief. I don't know if anybody knows that, but he came up. He lives locally anyway, but he came up to the Sunset Fire Camp one day 3 weeks ago now, maybe, or I've lost track of time. Had to sit down with him anyway, and not many revelations in the general discussion, but a few tidbits. He wants to see that GNA expand more. I don't know exactly how. They're at capacity right now, I think, what they can take on, the people that they have. I don't know how that will He also mentioned NGOs such as Wild Turkey Federation, the National, which we've done with some other people. That, you know, the pitfalls with NGOs is you take a lot of taxpayer money, so appropriate dollars, and give it to an entity that many times doesn't have much accountability.
Doesn't have what?
Much accountability. And so I caution us, when we've done this before, we've put $1 million into something and not gotten anything out of it, except the guy that ran it got much money.
Got a brand new.
NGOs are tough. You know, if it's not organized correctly and not washed over correctly, it can be a tough deal. State entities, IDL is, you know, you have transparency and accountability with another agency. Another thing that I don't know how much has been talked about with Bonner County, but another thing that he pushed, and there's an effort in Boundary County and it's growing legs fast. Because we can do G&A, Good Neighbor Authority agreements with entities besides states, including tribes and counties. And Boundary County, with that set of commissioners there, is pushing hard. And we're accommodating to make an agreement where, and some of the first things they would like to take on, and maybe some low-hanging fruit, as I would call it, is using their road maintenance crews to do more road work on Forest Service jurisdiction roads, and even into road work into timber sales. So by agreement, we funnel money to the county to perhaps even hire some people or rent equipment, buy equipment, and a road grader or something to that effect, or use the capacity they have, which I don't think they actually have the capacity to do more than they're doing. But they're even also looking at, eventually, they've got hiring a contract forester, even implement some timber sales through the county. So some different thing. I don't know if you heard anything. Do you have anything?
I haven't.
Cornell, or anything yet? The chief mentioned this because they met with Boundary County commissioners at the Coeur d'Alene SO, Forest Service SO. Talked about all these things. Chief wants to see things happen. He mentioned, as we sat at the Sunset Fire camp, Bonner County, he'd like to see Bonner County. You guys talked about it, Bonner County. And we have a little bit in the past, in, let's say, recent past, the last commission set of commissioners, I guess, I put that in. But it didn't really gain much traction. And these monies that we're talking about, it isn't, you know, some of this could be loosely tied to program revenue, in other words, revenue garnered off of timber sales. But it's largely garnered off of appropriate dollars funneled into. Yeah, there is a potential that there's going to be a ton of, when I say ton, millions of dollars put into our local G&A agreement on the Idaho Panhandle National Forest. That will be doled out, and perhaps some of, I would think some of that money would be earmarked to go to Boundary County, for example, to implement more work on the ground, supplement some of the work we're already doing. Anyway, so just so you haven't heard anything about that, I would imagine, I would think.
No.
Someday discussions will be coming, and I don't know what the direction of this commission will take on in the future. But it's an advisory to the county that called for that.
So Boundary County is working with the GNA, is that what's going?
So right now, we're still in the infancy stages of creating an official agreement with Boundary County.
And the GNA?
It's, yeah, so
Okay.
the authority when I say GNA, it's that authority, that bill that gives,
Right.
gives us this legal framework, right, to be able to pursue this. And so we have, GNA, Good Neighbor Authority Agreements that probably be called. We have, we are also actively pursuing developing an agreement with, the tribe, in Boundary County and with the county itself.
So I have kind of stirrings from one of the commissioners. They talked about some kind of salvage work on the fire they had up there. Is that part of what?
Yeah, so, I don't think that particularly will go anywhere.
Okay.
And I only say this because this isn't an old thing about the salvaging on that fire up there, but first off, it's been we'll be going into our third year. That wood is no good.
Probably
And then
rotted.
second to that, so there was one member of the community that was pushing for salvaging wood up there right after the fire was done.
Right.
We took an earnest effort to look at it, and the issue is that it's inaccessible. There was no infrastructure to get to what was burned. And to put infrastructure in there was gonna cost 10 times more than wood.
Right.
Plus,
No return on investment.
no return on investment, plus the NEPA effort. You're straight inside of a grizzly bear management.
Right. So,
And regardless of what anybody thinks about it, the hurdle there with Fish and Wildlife Service,
they would stretch it out forever. Yeah.
it just made no sense to try
Okay.
and do that. So
Grizzly bears and roads, it's a fact.
we focus our salvage efforts on where it actually is economically feasible. There's factors there. So for example, like I mentioned at Sandpoint South, so you go up the 630 road, which is a little blacktail road,
Mhm.
and it goes up and it splits up there eventually, and there's that right fork where there's a bench up there that eventually overlooks the lake, but that fire came over right there, and there's 37 acres. I know it's small. There's 37 acres of wood that will be viable through this winter.
At least one winter and one summer.
Exactly. If we can get it by the end of June, a guy can make money on it. It makes sense to get out of there, and we'll replant it. But there's a few other areas between Little Blacktail, so Evans Landing, and Three Sisters, which is towards Bayview, that will be putting into another timber sale that's already being prepped for sale anyway in June. That'll just go with that stuff. But out of anything on the lake face, there's let's say there's 1,000 acres of burned Forest Service ground. We're looking at 100 that's economically viable.
Sure.
The rest of it really isn't, and
Right.
that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
That's the way the ground is. But that's the issue on the one in Boundary County, and I know they're still kind of talking about that, but beyond that thing, we have some other projects coming online up there, not huge to begin with, 1 million board feet, but perhaps there's a mechanism there where the county, they're in earnest, want to be having a more active role in managing federal land in their county jurisdiction, and this GNA is a mechanism to do that. There's a lot that goes into these agreements. There's a lot of infrastructure behind that really needs to be developed. All those things need to have some foresight in developing. You just don't take something on haphazardly. Because there's an accounting system that's built behind all of that. We report to Congress all of the accomplishments reporting out of that, just that little piece of it. Which the ideal is well suited for, because they're also a land management agency, so they've got the accountability side on their house. We just marry area it covers.
Would they have the local processing ability too?
The county itself?
Yeah,
No, are you talking as far as the mill infrastructure or the logging infrastructure?
both.
Yeah, so the other push, and I think this is, well, they want to try everything possible to keep that Boyer Idaho Forest Group mill there.
Right.
And it is all of our best interest as land managers to keep that there. And not that any of our efforts will make a giant difference in that perhaps, but
The
at least we
cumulative.
can try.
Yeah.
And that cumulative effect of any little bit to keep wood found there is a big deal for the community and the mill itself and the logging industry. I don't know, we haven't seen yet where the Canadian wood, what's gonna happen with that with tariffs. We haven't seen that all get ironed out. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know where that will go, but I know it's been talked about before, and you read, you can glean this out of the two executive orders that specifically dealt with ramping up federal supply, that basically we're gonna wean ourselves off of foreign wood, which we'll see how that happens, because there's so many tentacles, as we all know. We're trying to do that with our neighbors in Canada, for example, but we get wood from, the East Coast gets wood from Germany.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many tentacles in the world, right?
Right.
You never know how these things will really go. But anyway, so wood market's always, that side of the house is always strange to me, because nationally housing demand isn't really enough. So I always wonder, like, we ramp up cutting, and I know part of that too, like, so North Idaho, I'll zoom in now on North Idaho for just a moment, but when we look at the private timber ground in northern Idaho, companies like Stimson and Potlatch Delta, a little bit of the Idaho Forest Group ground, say, they've cut their ground pretty hard recently. And I know that part of what we're doing, and Potlatch has come to us and said, we want to buy more samples because we've cut our ground pretty well. And this is mostly down in St. Mary's County. They're looking at us to fill that void, which is great. Yeah, I want to see work done. Let's get wood to market. I just don't know when you zoom out in the bigger picture.
Yeah.
It's an interesting deal when you look at just over 25 years, say, the cost of doing business has more than doubled, just the fuel cost, let alone taxes people pay, the labor burden you have on the operator. And yet our wood prices haven't moved. The price at the mill has not moved. Lumber markets have increased. Like, you look at the price that Lowe's pays, as an example, Lowe's pays to Idaho Forest Group, say, those prices have increased. The price for your 2x4 has increased.
Oh, yeah.
But I know I'm getting paid less for the wood that I was in 25 years ago. It's a weird dynamic, and I don't understand all the shifts there, all the economics of it, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with markets, is all I'm saying, and such. But anyway, the county thing, I think, is something important that we may want to keep in mind. If the commissioner so asked for perhaps some help.
Seems like the road maintenance part of that, if a county is willing and wants to and able, is a winner all around, because those roads are multi-use. It's not just the forestry industry using it, recreational,
Yeah.
a whole bunch of uses that go on that a county would care about.
And we already have, Schedule A agreements with counties. So already, there's, what we call Schedule A agreements anyway. Agreements, where, like Bonner County, for example, is performing road maintenance, namely blading, brushing,
Sure.
ditch cleaning, on what is properly a Forest Service road.
Yeah, there's, you swap.
And we
Right,
swap,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so we have some mechanisms in place already to that
okay.
effect. It's in a limited degree, and so what's being discussed with Boundary County is beyond that.
Yeah,
Far
right.
beyond that.
Right.
Which, again, it would be, yeah, you're funneling money to fill. I don't see the capacity existing right now.
Yeah, right.
Where they're talking about wanting to be.
Exactly.
In Boundary County especially, yeah.
Boundary County especially,
Yeah.
Right.
as you know.
Especially there.
But funneling money there to build that capacity. So again, that would be buying that piece of equipment, hiring those other two guys. And then, of course, along with that, since it's appropriate funding that's coming down, you know, it's a little bit of a concern. There's lots of issues, but a little bit of concern with guaranteed funding streams.
Oh, yeah.
Program revenue doesn't necessarily, I mean, that's the whole end game.
Buy all that
maybe.
equipment and then you can't pay them to go do anything.
Maybe it lasts a couple of years. Anyway, the idea is that once it gets legs and maybe the program revenue, in other words, the receipts from timber sales, pays for that, to keep that going.
Yeah.
And that's all.
The idea.
There's risk involved in all decisions you make as a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, it's great ideas, and I don't want to be afraid to fail at something.
There's extra risks involved with sales on federal lands too, so.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so, to your point with that, one of the larger projects up there is, we've got maybe about 80 million feet in a planning effort that the decision should be signed, hopefully in December as well. It's the Captain Fuels project, and this sits on, this is Katka Peak, Katka, the paved Katka Road, what we call the Katka Highway, Boulder Creek drainage. And so that's east of town, going towards Montana, out Highway 2. You look up on the hills there, that's where that sits.
So that would be north of 20 Mile, I'm trying to think.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
So country that's north of 20 Mile, when you get over there. But we already have sales, they're actually just starting to wind down now. Been done, but this is kind of the last bit of ground that we're going into there. That's grizzly bear country.
Yeah.
And our neighbors in the Kootenai have been hit hard with lawsuits from the grizzly bear stuff, and they've really been hamstrung by that recently. And there's a giant risk.
That's one of the risks I was talking
Yeah,
about.
no, I know, yeah.
Yeah.
And the county is looking at this project like they want to take on part of this, and it's like, well, wait until the ink is signed and we're over clear, because there's a potentiality where we could be hung up in, I mean, that buckskin decision was hung up in court for 5 years. Almost.
Yeah.
Or it was 4, excuse me. So, I mean, and we've still got a project, a GNA, 2 GNA sales on Hannah Flats, right across from the Priest Lake Ranger Station, right across the airstrip there, if you're familiar with that. 2 timber sales they're going in there. We sold those in 2020.
So 5 years, almost 5 years.
Yeah, they're at the point now where we got to remarket and recruit.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
There's these heavy risks that come along with all these decisions that come down. I don't know if we'll ever, hopefully we get some relief on the grizzly bear end of it.
It has a chilling effect on application too, on people applying.
Oh, yeah.
Shooting for it, yeah.
Yeah. So Sandpoint South, Chloride, Buckskin, those projects, Buckskin wasn't even in grizzly bear habitat, but just because we had a couple bears wander through there, it becomes an issue. So, I mean, it's strangest of all things, but anyway, yeah. The project that we have is Connexu South is the proper name of it. This piece in Priest Lake. It's outside of the Grizzly Bear Management. We purposely kept it off it for our initial go and look at this piece of ground. There's stuff we want to do north of there, but as we move north, then we start moving into more complex.
Okay, so that's Priest Lake area, okay.
But Butler County nonetheless.
But it seems like the Forest Service chief is pushing some of this.
Yep, it's great to have somebody that wants to see stuff and push them to get stuff done harder than before. There's just, again, the issue, so the chief is part of USDA, the Forest Service is, but so there's other things coming down through the USDA executive branch that you never know how this stuff goes. And he is powerless,
Yeah.
to a lot of degree, to change any direction. And as it turns out, you still need people to do something. So I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know. Maybe there'll be something cool.
Well, I'm gonna talk with the Boundary County Commissioners and see how they're doing, just see if there's anything I can do. Probably not, but I can always check in.
I would encourage you to talk to those guys.
So yeah, Ben and Les
Ben and Les is,
and Tim.
I don't know Tim as well, but Les for sure.
Okay,
You know him better than I would.
I know Ben and Les. I don't know Tim very well either.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah. All right, anything else? Well, that was a great report.
I couldn't think of anything else that top of my head, but that's.
And then Jim didn't send anything in? Okay. Well, I'll be in touch with him. Okay. And then we need to talk about maybe a small recruitment effort to get some people for this board. I'll send out an email this week. I better write that down. Because it won't happen if I don't write it down.
Is the, are we gonna be changing up, the direction or task, I guess, of this committee, do you think, or?
Well, it's all at the behest of the
Yeah.
commissioners.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I'll talk with Commissioner Korn, since he seems to be doing the liaison work now. Is he the liaison here? Okay, all right, I'll just talk with him, because he has been,
okay,
and we'll find out.
okay. You mentioned, earlier, maybe do a monthly meeting.
Yeah, we might, well, we're doing monthly until we get a chance to actually make some decisions. Then we were looking to go into quarterly.
Yeah, I read that in,
Yeah, go into quarterly, and I'd like to elect a vice chair, so on the odd times that I'm not able to be here, we can still have meetings.
yeah, okay.
So, and then I'll be looking at some of what's going on with, as the new administration begins to churn out their goals for the resource industry.
Yeah,
Some of this will change.
oh,
We
yeah,
may become more useful to the commissioners. We were 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and then it kind of leveled out, and now it looks like we might be needed again, so.
and that, I think you were bringing up that point too, because, I think you mentioned before, one of the things was looked at in the past was the roadless stuff, right? You know, that's all changing.
I know it is,
Yeah,
but it's so up in the air
yes,
that we don't know what kind of changes are coming yet even. So,
yeah. So that'd be really another interesting thing
okay,
coming down.
Chevron.
We don't know what
Yeah.
that looks like internally either. So far, the only thing that we have been told is that everything is fallen back to the Idaho rules rule, which really, there's the status quo for us right now. Um, Again, like you mentioned, we'll see what is the next change there.
Okay. I'm gonna check with Russ too. All right. Well, we can't make any decisions. Thank you, Luke. That was excellent. A lot of good information. We never really had a meeting, but if there's nothing else, I mean, we never had an official meeting. Yeah, if there's nothing else, I guess we'll adjourn. If there's no questions for Luke.
No, that was very thorough and interesting to hear.
Yeah, and I've got notes.
What you were describing was coming to fruition.
Yeah.
Great.
Future's looking brighter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're feeling, on the trail side.